Welcome back to Learn SKN, and today we have another MOB video for you. That's Management of Business for CAPE. Now this is a very interesting one because some of the topics that we are going to cover in this video we would have covered already in POB. Now some of the content basically remains the same for this topic in particular. One of the only differences is that if they ask a question, of course you'll have to expound more. You'll have to add more flesh to the bones, but the content basically remains the same, right? So this one is about economic sectors and legal structures, and if you look at this, you'll see that we covered a lot of them before, but I'll go through them still using the MOB textbook so you could see them from a different angle, a different perspective, so that you can understand a little clearer if you didn't understand before. So economic sector. Now the economy is used to answer three fundamental questions: what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom the goods should be produced for. Now, assuming that we are living in a mixed economy, we know the types of economic systems from POB. We have the controlled, we have the mixed, we have the free market, and of course we have the capitalist. Right? So we know all of those things, but we're going to work on under the assumption that we're operating in a mixed economy under which we have both private and public sector. And because of this, we can actually look at certain business organizations or structures that would only exist under the mixed or maybe the straight up capitalist society. So things like the sole trader, partnership, companies, most of them would exist under the private sector. Now the private sector is that part of the economy that is controlled by private individuals and firms. The private sector is that part of the mixed economy that is controlled by the private individuals and the firms. The public sector now would be that part of the economy that is controlled by the state or the government. And so we're working under the assumption that we're under a mixed economy, and as such we can divide it into the two sectors, which would be the private sector and the public sector. And so the economy on a whole will be used to answer the three fundamental questions of what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom the goods should be produced. Government and firms must make a necessary decision to each question. So you as a firm going to answer the question how you see fit. If you are a private entity, if you're a private enterprise, you answer it how you see fit. Each of these organizations within the private and public sector carries a particular legal structure. It is the legal structure that determines the following. So all of them, the sole trader, the partnership, the private limited company, public limited company, all those are the legal structures of these organizations. These are the legal structure. No one structure or no two structures are the same. You are either a sole trader or a partnership or a public limited company, private. You cannot exercise both at one time. So you are going to choose which one you really want to do, and you're going to choose based on certain things, such as how profits or losses are shared. Now, the legal structure that would, for example, the sole trader, under that, you know that you take all the profits, you take all the losses because you alone. The firm's tax obligations. So a private sole trader would have different tax obligations to a big company. That's just how it goes. So the tax obligations are different based on the legal structure, whether it is a sole trader, partnership, private limited company, public, down the line, right? From the list that we just outlined before. Also, we're looking at ease of formation. Sometimes you want to form a company, you want to form a business, and maybe your capital isn't there, the money isn't there for you, so you form the easiest one. Maybe you want to farm readily, one time, so you farm a sole trader because you want quick, fast, without much legal, paperwork. So you go with the sole trader route. Or you might want assistance, and so you might form a partnership or company because you want help in other things. But other things that determine the structure, the legal structure, is funding. Where you're going to get the monies from, whether it is from friends, family, in the form of maybe a sole trader, or whether it is from the stock market in the form of a public limited company. Stock market you can use to get funding. Who bears the legal liabilities? Again, this is determined by the structure. For some structures, like sole trader, you as the individual would be all the liability. It's called unlimited liability. And we know, look, one thing with this course you have to understand is that the prerequisite would be POB. And so they expect you to know certain things coming into MOB from POB. For example, liabilities. We have unlimited liability, limited liability. You should have known this from POB. We know that limited liability means that there's a limit to what you might lose if your company goes down, goes under. Whereas unlimited liability means, and it exists mainly in the sole trader and to a certain extent in the partnership, unlimited liability means that you can lose your personal assets, your personal goods, if the company goes under. So you should know these things coming from POB. Then we have the continuity of existence. That again is affected by the legal structure. For example, sole trader, when the person dies, that's it. Even if a family member continues the business by name, legally it's not the same business because they are new owners, things like that. So the continuity of existence is also affected by the legal structure. Companies live on far beyond the founders because everybody who is a shareholder is basically a part owner, so it lives on. So choosing the most appropriate legal structure for a business depends heavily on the aim of the business owner. For example, a person who wants to start a business and keep full control would start a sole proprietorship, while another person who wants financial support for startup from a number of people is likely to start a company or a partnership, like I said before. So based on what you have in mind, if you want a quick, fast business on your own, then you go with the sole trader or the sole proprietorship. You want help, you want assistance, you want to raise some capital, then you go to a next one, either the partnership or the company. And the partnership goes up to about 20. So you can have about 10 of your best friends or the 10 of your closest friends or family helping you to raise capital, things like that. At the same time, a sole proprietorship business may not be suitable for a very large multinational firm because of its size and geographical area it decides to span. So that goes without saying. You can't have a sole trader running a multinational company. You're only one person. You can't be here, there, and everywhere. You need other persons, and the capital investment required to run a multinational corporation, I don't think you can raise that on your own as a sole trader. So even if you start out as a sole trader, eventually you'll move up to, if you want to expand to multinational, you might have to change the legal structure. So again, like I said before, we are working under the assumption that these companies are operating under the mixed economy. And as such, you would have a private sector and a public sector. And under the private sector, we have private individuals or private groups of individuals starting their own organization, their own business. So it exists under the private sector. All these are private individuals or private firms conducting their own business. Under the limited companies, like I said in POB, do not mix up a private company and a public company for private sector and public sector. People did that. But the sole proprietor, the partnership, the limited companies, the franchising, the cooperatives, the joint ventures, all those are examples of legal structures of businesses found under the private sector. And then we have the public sector, which is mainly the state-run operations. So you have the privatization, nationalized companies, privatized companies, those kind of things. So those are some of the key differences right there. So you have a private sector, you have a public sector. The private sector contains all of these legal structure of organizations that are owned and operated by private individuals or groups of private individuals. They are not controlled by the government. But of course, they would have to abide by laws and rules that the government put in place for sure. So yeah, so all these, again, they differ in size. Sole trader might have just one owner. Companies have multiple owners. So they differ in size. And of course, they differ in legal structure, ways in which they are started, that kind of thing. So the first one we're looking at here is the sole trader. And as I said before, we covered this in POB. So just to expound on what you already know. So this is the oldest and probably most common form of business organization. And so a sole trader would be an example of someone like a street vendor is a sole trader. maybe a doctor who have their own practice, a lawyer, a bus driver, a taxi driver. All those are examples of sole proprietors or sole traders. Once one person owns and operates a business, that business is a sole trader. Right? So let's not get it twisted. But that doesn't mean you're the only one who works in the business. Sole trader doesn't mean you're the only worker. You're the only owner. But you can, of course, hire people to work for you, because some restaurants, bars would hire persons to, do the barkeeping and stuff like that. You go to a doctor office, a lawyer office, you have your administrative assistants, you have your technical assistants, things like that. So people can work for sole traders, but the ownership, legally, only one person owns that company. A sole trader is the simplest form of business. Simplest, as there are few or no legal requirements. That's a key point there. There are few or no legal requirements to start a sole trader business. You can just because you want to run taxi, you want to run a bus, you buy the bus, license the bus, and you go. You ain't got much paperwork to fill out, much taxes to contend with, nothing like that. You want to start street vending, get some vegetables, fruits, sweets, whatever, put them in a tray, in the back of your car, you go, do your vending. You don't have to sign up for nothing really. But of course, sometimes you license your business to get certain advantages, right? For small businesses, small entrepreneurs. But for the most part, there is few or no legal requirement to start a sole trader or a sole proprietor business. Of course, the nature of the business also affects whether you have legal requirements or not. For example, even though if you're a doctor, you still need a license, or lawyer, and you're working on your own, you still need a license to practice law, to practice, medicine. If you are running a restaurant, a bar, you still need a license to sell alcohol and those things. So there are certain differences based on the nature of that sole trader business still. If it's food, of course you need a food handler's permit. You can't just go sell food just like that. The health department need to know that you are up to the standard, you know what's going on. So therefore, you have some legal requirement. But that's about it for a restaurant or a person handling food. You just need the liquor license, handler's permit, you're good to go. For bus, taxi, a license, whatever special insurance, you're good to go. So there's little or few legal requirements to start the sole trader or the sole proprietor business. Some features of the sole trader business, again, very simple to form compared to the others. So it's simplicity in formation compared to the others. The owner is in control of the business, requires little startup capital. The owner and the business are one. They are the same legal entity, and lack of continuity. So let's look at this a little closer. There's a reason why they say this. The owner and the business are one. They are the same legal entity. So what they're saying, there's no difference between your mom and pop shop and the mom and pop, right? Because, for example, companies, legally, a company is its own thing, is its own entity. For example, Grace Kennedy is its own thing. So if you want to sue somebody, you sue Grace Kennedy. You want to sue Walmart, you sue Walmart. You're not going to sue the Waltons. You see what I'm saying? You want to sue Amazon, you're not going to sue Jeff Bezos, because legally the company is its own entity. But for a sole trader, if you go to a restaurant owned by one person and something happens there, you can sue that individual. That individual is the person who is liable, not the restaurant name. So there's no separation between the sole trader and the owner. They are one and the same. So you sue the owner, you sue in the entity. But in the company, you sue the company, the owners still are not liable. And of course, we look at lack of continuity before. We said that if someone dies, a sole trader dies, the company ceases to exist. Even if somebody resurrects it in the same name, legally, it is not the same company. And they say requires little startup capital. I gave some examples where you can just go start the company and you're good to go, because you don't need much money. You want, if it's a highly capital intensive company or business, of course, you might need to venture elsewhere, maybe a partnership, a company, something like that, to raise as much money, right? So those are some differences, some of the main features of the sole trader business. Then we're looking at some advantages of a sole trader business. What are some advantages of being a sole trader? So, advantages. As I said before, we've been stressing, it is easy to farm as there are few or no legal requirements. So, easy to farm. Few are no legal requirements. I gave some examples already. You want to be a street side vendor, you get your goods, you get your wares, you go down to the side of the road and you sell. You see it all the time. Jamaica, Trinidad, you see a lot of persons just there selling the banana when the red light, when the traffic light goes red, selling the car freshener, they're selling the little popcorn, all kind of store, they're just selling stuff just like that. Easy to farm. Get this stuff and you go to town, you sell. Decisions can be made quickly. After all, it's you alone. You're the owner. So of course, you're not going to argue with yourself unless you're crazy. You're not going to be arguing with yourself as to what decisions should be made. Of course, it's going to take time to deliberate in your mind, but at the end of the day, you are the only one who has to make the decision, and it's going to be done quicker than if you have to debate with multiple persons, a partner or a shareholder or something like that. The owner enjoys all the profits. Of course, you make all the money, all belong to you. You're the only one who runs the business, so you have nothing to share with anybody. With the exception of tax returns, business affairs are private. So you don't have to tell anybody how much you're making. You don't have to tell anybody nothing about your business. That's your own information to have outside of whatever tax returns you might have to file based on the country you're living in. Can be most suitable where capital is scarce. So when money is an issue, raising money is an issue, then going sole proprietor, sole trader might be the best thing to do. So the best or the easier way angle to take because it requires less capital. And of course, advantages, yes, but like anything else, there are also disadvantages to being a sole trader. And you realize they seem a little longer, no? A little longer. You have what? 3 and so 5. So it's basically the same then. All right, 5. All right. The owner has unlimited liability. That is, he or she stands to lose personal assets if the business fails. Again, they expect you to have learned about limited and unlimited liability in POB. So here, I'm going through it again a little bit. Unlimited liability means that you stand to lose more than you invested in the business if the business fails. You can lose your house, you can lose your land, your car, whatever, because the bank is going to take back their monies. Whatever you lent, they lent you, they want it back full with interest. And so whatever you have to do, they're going to take it from you. So house, car, collateral, whatever. Whereas a company now, if you buy $10,000 in shares, company goes under, you're going to lose the $10,000, nothing more, nothing less, right? So unlimited liability, that's a bad thing as it relates to the sole trader. Difficulty in sourcing finance. So to raise some money is going to be hard because again, it's your loan, so you don't have anybody you can readily lean on. Had it been a partnership, of course you can lean on a partner. Had it been a company, public company, of course you can sell stakes in the business, you can sell stocks in the business to raise some capital. But it's your loan, and so therefore it's up to you and you alone to raise the capital, raise the money for that business, to finance that business. And so if you don't have enough links or deep enough pockets or enough friends and family, then of course you'll be at a major disadvantage. The business dies with the owner, hence there is lack of continuity. Again, I said that before. The business dies when the owner dies. If it is come back in the same name, is that the same legally, and so it's a new business legally. If somebody dies and somebody take it up on them, take it up with them, right? So it's a different business altogether. It's not the same. It may be difficult to achieve economies of scale. So again, economies of scale are those advantages that a company gains as it grows, meaning production costs tend to go down. The total cost, average variable costs tend to fall as your output increases. So it's the advantages a company gains as it grows. That's what we call economies of scale. But if you're a small company, a small business, a sole trader, you are only operating at a certain level, at a smaller level. It's going to be difficult for you to ramp up production, to increase your scale because it's you alone. For that to happen, you have to grow. And you have to grow maybe by changing the legal structure of the company, getting more people on board, selling shares, stocks, that kind of stuff. So as a small individual person, your reach is reduced. You cannot really get as much financing from the banks because you're small, right? So you can't really buy and invest heavily to scale up, to increase economies of scale because you're a small company. There may be great demand on the owner's time and attention. Again, you're alone, you're the only one, so everything comes back to you. Any decision have to be made, that's you. Anything needs to be done, that's you. When your workers have gone home and stuff left back to do, that's on you still. So you're gonna find yourself working a large amount of hours weekly just to get your company up and running and functioning properly. After all, it's in your best interest for it to be successful. And so that's basically it for the sole trader or the sole proprietorship. That's as a legal structure in an economy. So that's basically it. So like I said, we covered some of it in lighter detail in POB, but this time you have to expound, explain, give the ups, the downs, the pros, the cons for a sole trader. So we're going to study here for now. We don't want to get the video too long and draggy. So the next video, we're going to pick right up where we left off. We're going to pick up at the partnership. And so the only way you know when that video drops is by subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, and hitting that notification bell so you know when Learn SKN drops the next video on partnership. All right, so thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.